let's look at how to use fonts inside Viz Artist. You can import fonts to Viz Artist, TrueType fonts and OpenType fonts. Not all features of the OpenType fonts are supported, but in general they will work well. So the first you need to do is to get your the fonts that you are going to use, and it's advisable to spend some money on buying good corporate fonts with the different weights that you need. So you have like black and thin hairline and so on. So you go to Artist and you find the folder where you want to import it. And we are going to import it in the meta folder, and I make a separate folder for the thin font that we are going to import. And then we go and import this font. Take this one. We simply drag it into that folder. And it now generates the fonts that is used by Viz Artist, and these are saved in the graphics hub. So it doesn't matter what fonts are on your system folder, on your Windows folder. It's only the fonts that are saved in the graphics hub that matters. The first font that is imported is the regular geometry font, and the second one is the blur one, and then there's a blur 2 and blur 3 and blur 4. So the blur 4 is the most blurred font, and these are texture fonts. Then in addition there are some outline fonts. They sometimes have some artifacts, and there are also other ways around to generate outline in Viz Artist. So when you take in text, you normally put that in a group. So we can call this for text 1. And we take in a text like this. And let's call this for text. When you want to control the text from Artist or Trio, you need to have a control plugin on it. And this one you can add like this, and you will set a field identifier, and that is really important. Because it allows you to use the same field identifier on multiple versions of that font. So let's just scale up. When we scale, we normally scale the group in front of it, like this. Because then I can take another font and take in, let's say I take a blur font in, like this. And now we see we have a blur font in the background. And this you can set slightly behind it, like this. And if you have the same control plugin on the second font, see this one is called 001, and because I copied it, this one is also called 001. That means if you write something here, both will change at the same time. And in this way you can control both those fonts at the same time. And if you animate, move and so on, do that on the parent group, and they will just stick together like that. And you could also just duplicate this, you see, and you could also maybe, for example, have some color on it. Let's put emission on it. Something like this. Like this. And if you then also take a container plugin expert and set this to add, for example, you will see you will get the font to burn into the background. And you could also turn off this one. So yes, but it could also be that you take out this one and you simply duplicate this one, and let's just set it up frontal. You take an extrude on the second one, and let's add a material also here. Now we see we have extruded the font, and you can also bevel it out like this. And the advantage here is now you have the first font as a separate font. This means that you could have a separate color on this one, and you could set this to an emission color, like this, for example. This, and you see you always have that one in front. So the second way to add an outline, except for using the outline font, would be to simply scale this one in set, like this. And then you could also set this one as an emission font. This, now it's black. Like this. If I now lower the bevel, you'll get it finer like this. And the same as here. If I go to and control this one from an external application, they will both fonts will update at the same time. Okay, let's look a little bit on the general parameters of the fonts. So I just take out this one for now, and I set this one to white. First of all, you can justify from right, from middle. This means it's justified from middle, just like in any other design program, like this. You can also choose to set your font as geometry or texture. And if you set it as geometry, it will actually be a wireframe. So if you see here, it's actually built up of a wireframe. If I go to set this as a texture, and you see texture is not very good if you are using the large fonts. So if you are using large fonts, you are using definitely geometry. Early on, when there were less capacity on the renderers, we used the texture sometime to avoid a lot of geometry. But these days, it's not so much of an issue anymore. Yeah, you have the regular controls that you have in all design programs, spacing between the fonts, between the words, and also between each line and so on. There is a shadow option. Let me just set this one back to geometry. That you can set, and you see it takes the texture font like this. Here you can choose between geometry and texture. So if we set this one to dark, we can set this one like this. And this can be sometimes convenient if you don't know the background, but often it's good to put some background behind your lower third to make sure that it's readable. Yeah, there is also clocks that is possible to have that can be controlled from external applications. You can take this one away. You also have access to all the special characters, so sometimes if it's difficult to find the stuff that you need, you can go and pick them like this. Let me just set this one back, scale it a little bit down. And there is also a text box that is possible to put here. And you get a rectangle around this one. So whatever you write inside here will always be inside this box, and this is important for template work. So here you can set the width and the height of the text box. Remember that you had also these buttons to show from which side your text will grow, if it will grow from the middle, or from the top, or from the bottom.